The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we are webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. It's a Wednesday. We love this day because we start the show out with Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh for a segment we call Ask Dr. Doreen. You get to ask her your questions in real time, and we're going to start that in just a couple of minutes. And then in the second hour, we have Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson from Act Today joins me, and we've got a wonderful show planned for you this afternoon. In any case, I want to remind you as we start the show that this entire show is meant to be completely interactive. We want to hear from you. What questions do you have? What do you have to say? Do you have suggestions for topics that you want us to talk about? And most especially, do you have questions for Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh? You have the opportunity to participate with us. Emily will show you some of the different ways you can watch the show, some of the different ways that you can pose a question. I will remind you that our homepage is autism-live.com. When you go there, make sure that you check out the blog at some point. We've got a wonderful meditation there for overwhelmed parents right now that's totally free. You can download. We've got one that's coming for kids because you guys suggested that last week. It's coming up. Within the next 2 weeks, we should have that for you. But also, you have an opportunity on that homepage to watch the live show and interact with the live show. Take a look at the computer, click on the little triangle that's on the computer screen, and you can be watching the live show or the most recently recorded live show. Now, to the side of that are a series of boxes. You can put your cursor there in the box that says your question, type away, hit enter, and that's all you have to do. It shows up here on my screen, and I can ask your question in almost real time. There's about a minute lag. Pretty incredible, that instant gratification. You don't have to log in. There is no cost. We don't take any of your personal information at all. In fact, if you want us to get back to you, we need you to include an email address or some way that we can get back to you. So having said all that, it's a very special day here. This is the week of Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh's birthday, and I know a lot of you have already been writing in birthday messages, but it's time to bring her onto the show. So without further ado, it's time for Ask Dr. Doreen.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is the
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is a visionary in the field of autism. Now you can ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen.
Welcome to Ask Dr. Doreen, and we welcome Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh back to the program. So thrilled to have you here.
Thank you so much. It's lovely to be here again.
And happy birthday. It's the week of your birthday.
Yes, it's extremely embarrassing. Yes, thank you.
But it's when we celebrate you.
Well, it's really nice. CARD celebrates Spirit Week this week, and it's a fun week for everyone at CARD everywhere in the world, but it's very embarrassing, and it also is terrible because now all my staff are tracking the years. Every year that I get older, I'm like, no, stop doing that.
But you look so young that
Thank you very much.
You could lie and no one would know.
Yeah.
You know, the rest of us, we can't get away with that. But we celebrate you and the fact that you're here and all that you do for all of us.
Thank you very much.
And if somebody is just joining the program, Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is an expert in the field of autism and working in this field for multiple decades.
Thank you very much. Look at what a present that I got.
Yeah, and the green screen is going to make holes in it a little bit where the green is, but this is a painting that my son did because I always tell everybody, you're more than an expert, you're
That's
a visionary.
Beautiful.
You're a visionary in the field of autism.
That's
you
so
see
sweet.
things.
Thank you very much.
You see things. I recently was hearing a quote from Harriet Tubman that she said, "I see things sometimes not as they are, but as they should be." And that's exactly how I think of you all the time.
That's so good. Thank you so much.
You see where we need to get to years before anybody else has that inkling. You're already leading the way.
Sometimes. And then there's too many things that I see that should be, and then get caught up in trying to make all of them happen, and it's hard.
You are one woman, but you have a legion of people behind you that we follow you.
Thank you very much. Thanks,
we appreciate you. And so Dr. Granpeesheh is here for 1 hour every week. She, of all the things that she has to do, she takes 1 hour and says, "I will come and be here to answer your questions." And it's a wonderful opportunity. I get goosies whenever I think about how great it is that so many families get the opportunity. But I do want to remind everybody that Dr. Granpeesheh can't give you child-specific advice. In fact, no one could on this show, wouldn't matter how great of an expert, how great of a visionary you are. In this format, that would be a disservice to an individual to think that they could get individual specific. Because it's not just children we talk about adults as well.
That's right.
So
very well said.
But she can give you more questions, and she can give you direction to go, and she can fill you in on information that you're not going to find anywhere else. It's just so enlightening always. So we appreciate your questions, and I do want to start today by talking about where you're going to be on Saturday, because you have a very big event that you're going to be at in Austin, Texas. This event, and we talked about this a couple weeks ago, this is called Give Autism a Chance Summit. And Dr. Granpeesheh will be speaking there along with, it's such an interesting array of people. Rob Schneider is going to be there. Aidan Quinn is going to be there. You're going to be there. Dr. Arthur Kriegsman, Dr. Andrew Wakefield will be there. Dr. Kendall Stewart. The list is amazing. And the workshops that are there include holding the family together, healthy living, gut issues, environmental factors in autism, behavior therapy and education, everyday concerns, and an opportunity for everybody to get up. It's called Your Shout. Get up and have your say, that you can have 2 minutes on the microphone to say what you want to say. I think that's a lovely opportunity.
This is so Polly Tomey is amazing. There's the Autism Trust. She's so just amazing and talented, and thinks of these amazing ways to do these things. The difference with this is not a standard conference, it's a series of panels. So none of us have prepared anything. We're just going to sit on panels and answer questions and talk about various topics of discussion. So it should be really interesting.
And for those of you who are going to be in the Austin area, we encourage you to go to the autismtrust.org, theautismtrust.org, to arrange tickets, but they are going to be Ustreaming it. So for those of us who aren't...
It's a tough week too in Austin. There's several other events. One is a big motorcycle events going on in Austin. I could barely find a hotel.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's going to be, but Polly did tell me that it is pretty packed, the conference, so it should be very good. It's at the Austin Music Center, I believe, and so it should be really good.
The Austin, my mouth automatically goes to autism, the Austin Music Hall.
Right.
But again, you can sign up if you go to autismtrust.org and get the Ustream, so wherever you are in the world, you can be watching that and tune in and see. It promises to be a really exciting summit, and excited that you're going to be there.
Me too.
Great opportunity for people to see you. Okay, let's get right into questions, because we've got a lot going on here, and a lot of you are writing in and saying happy birthday, and we'll make sure that we're sharing those with Dr. Granpeesheh as well. Hi, Shannon and Dr. Doreen. How do I teach accepting no to a low-functioning 7-year-old? He loves video games. Sometimes he asks appropriately for video games, but it's right before school or therapy. I've been saying good asking, but it's not available right now. He then hits himself, aggresses towards me, and tantrums anywhere from 5 to 30 minutes. I have never given him access to video games after this behavior. I don't know what is maintaining it. This has been going on for a month. Please help.
This is such a great question. This has got to be the number one thing that happens with a lot of my adolescents and adults. So the reason that he is tantruming and hitting himself and aggressing and freaking out when you say no, even though you've been very good and you've been very consistent in regards to not giving him what he wants, the reason that he's doing that is simply he doesn't understand time. So this is a really important concept. If I tell you let's say you're at work, and I'll say, and you'll say, I really want to go swimming, and I'll say no. And I'll say, you can go later. And later means nothing to you. It could be later today, it could be in 20 minutes, it could be in 5 days, it could be a year from now. You will freak out because you have no concept of when you're going to get your reinforcer. There's just no meaning to later. So for him, and this happens all the time with our kids, all the time, because we tell them you can do it after school, you can have it in a couple of hours, you can do it later, all that, and it just, none of it means anything because they're not aware of the passage of time, and they're not aware of, he's not understanding that he can have what he wants at 3 o'clock or at 4 o'clock after school. He's not getting that. If he was able to get that concept, he would have a much, much easier time waiting. And this is true of all of us. Imagine if you went to work and you never knew when work's going to end. I mean, we work because we know at a certain hour, 5, 6, whatever it is, we get to go home and rest. If you were told just keep going, it would drive you crazy. You'd be freaking out. So the important thing is to try to teach him some concepts of time. There's many different ways you could do that. You can, use a timer if it's a short period of time, such as just an egg timer or a kitchen timer or something like that. You could put a timer on an iPad, obviously, which counts down from, let's say, 3 o'clock. There's many apps right now that actually help you time to a certain point. So in other words, you could plug into the application 4 p.m. and it'll show the person the progression of time till 4 p.m. by for instance, with a bar that gradually fills in. You need to have a visual that shows him you're getting closer, and you have to teach this. So, ideally, let's say in a given scenario, you would practice this not in the morning when he's about to go to school. So you'd practice this separately, and you'd prompt him, what was the item that he wants?
Video games.
Yeah. So you show him the video game and say, do you want it? And he'll say, yes, I want video game or whatever, and you give it to him. Then you practice, do you want it? And then you set a timer or the timer on the thing, and you'll say, you get it when the timer is over 5 minutes or even 1 minute. You can start with anything. And as he's sitting there, you'll just keep talking to him, keep him occupied, and show him, say, look, we're almost there. Look, we're almost there. And he gets the concept that when this visual thing, whether it's an egg timer or a kitchen timer or something on an iPad, a stopwatch, whatever it is, when that hits a certain point and it dings is when he gets it. And then you gradually shift that and increase it to an hour. Once you've hit an hour, you can pretty much skip forward faster. You can go to 2 hours, 3 hours, and so on. And you can also tie it into, give him a schedule for school. Like, say, this is what happens in the morning, a visual schedule. Then you get lunch, and, put a picture of him having lunch. Then you get in the car. Then you come home. Then you can have video games. And give him visual pictures, because that'll help him understand he's getting closer. He'll check off, this is what happened. I had my class. I did my lunch. I'm in the car. I'm getting close to home, I'm gonna get my video game. So those are some ideas of how to do this, but it is very important to help the individual understand. It's the most critical thing. When I'm able to do that with my kids, with my adolescents, really severely affected adolescents or adults, all their behavior just goes away. Because you're fair, you're explaining to them that they can certainly have what they're asking for, just not now.
Yeah. Here's the irony in what you're saying is that I feel like as the parents, we want the child to stop doing this now.
Yeah.
And you're telling us we have to wait. We have to do these steps before they stop doing it. It's the same thing.
Exactly right.
It's striking me because I'm thinking, but if I were this parent, I'm like, that's going to take a while to work up to, and I want it to stop now. And that frustration that we're feeling is the same frustration they're feeling.
That's right. And this is a very good lesson for all the viewers in that you never really, when something is a problem, you don't want to work on it during the course of life. You cannot work on this issue when you're trying to get him ready for school in the morning. That's the worst time. You have enough on your plate at that time. He's going to lose it. Everything's going to fall apart. You need to make this a target,
Right.
and you work on it actually after school.
Right.
You know, you work on it on the weekends. You work on it when you actually have the time to give him some, you know, duration of time, attention, and teach him how to shape up the behavior.
And so in the interim, while she's shaping this up, and he's still possibly having the tantrum in the morning, what can we tell her to help her to get through that period of time?
Well, I mean, you know, you will really at this point, as soon as you start getting into it, tantrums will start to go down a little bit.
Okay.
But redirect. All you can do right now is distract him with other things.
Yeah.
I would keep the computer away. I would definitely make sure the computer is not visible in the morning so that it's not a prompt. I would keep him busy from the minute he wakes up to the minute he has to go to school. Both verbally talking to him, keeping his mind occupied with various things, increase reinforcers, other types of reinforcers, so that he is not necessarily needing the computer. Don't give, in other words, you're doing some antecedent control here. You're not even giving him the opportunity to start thinking about the computer and ask for it, or videos, or whatever it is.
Okay.
Use video games. And the other thing is you can always make him have a habit, you know, teach him the habit of video games are from like 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. and that's it.
Yeah.
And you that's also very easy. I mean, we're very habit-controlled beings, a species altogether. So you just have to start teaching him time. And I swear to you, it'll change a million things in his life. The simplest thing you can do is get him a very inexpensive, like a Casio type watch that's digital, and teach him how to read numbers. Hopefully he knows how to read numbers. Most of our kids do, or adults do. And you just simply tell him when that hits 6.
Yeah.
And then you turn on the timer and it'll beep at 7 and it's over. Yeah. So you give him a visual means of understanding time.
Yeah, and I love the fact that we're so high tech now. But even if you needed to go low tech, I remember years ago a mom that she was having difficulty getting her kids to go out to the bus at a certain time, and she just kept yelling at them, saying, we gotta go, and they kept missing the bus. So she made a clock. She had the kitchen clock there, old-fashioned analog kitchen clock, and then she made a clock with a face, and she drew the time of when they had to be out the door, and just that visual changed the whole morning.
Absolutely.
So it doesn't have to be high-tech, but there are so many, if you've got a smartphone, there's so many high-tech things you can do that you don't have to get out the arts and crafts supplies.
Absolutely, yeah.
But great advice, because that's a difficult...
It's a very tough one, yeah.
It is a tough one.
It is a tough one.
Okay, so... all right, this is another great one. Hi, Shannon and Dr. Doreen. My 21-month-old just got assessed by CARD, and they use the ADOS. They told me he is on the borderline. Now, what's the difference between DSM-5 and ADOS? And when do you use one or the other? Thanks.
So that's probably a question that a lot of people have. The DSM-5, the DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, has a section, it has a chapter on autism, or now in the DSM-5 it's called autism spectrum disorder, and it kind of has a series of symptoms. It defines autism. So basically it says if your child has this, this, and this, then you'll get a diagnosis of autism. And you know, the symptom criteria are, you have to have a bunch of symptoms in the area of social communication, or you know, social behavior and such, and then you have to have a couple of symptoms in the area of stereotypy or ritualistic stereotype behaviors or repetitive behaviors. And if you have enough of all of those, then you'll get a diagnosis of ASD, autism spectrum disorder. And the DSM also now gives you the ability to say with or without intellectual disability, which means mental retardation, with or without language impairment, obviously, you know, based on medical, like connected to some other medical issue, connected to some other environmental issue, all these other sort of modifiers. And it also allows you to say how much support you feel the child needs. So in the social communication, if the child has a lot of real severe social issues, then I would rate it a 3, which is sort of needs significant support, versus a child who has few social problems, in which case they would just need some support. And the same thing with the ritualistic behavior. So it has some, it's sort of, you know, here's a bunch of symptoms. Does your child fit all of these? Yes or no? Okay, and that's the traditional, I mean, that a clinician who is trained in autism, like I am, uses the diagnostic manual to diagnose autism, okay, to diagnose anything. It's the book is all of the mental disorders that exist and describes each one, and so then you look at a child and you look if their symptoms match these, and you decide as a clinician, yes or no. And it's, you know, although it's pretty objective, it's subjective too. So for instance, it'll say, you know, does the child have appropriate social interaction with peers? Well, that's a subjective issue. If I'm a clinician who doesn't know what other 3-year-olds should be doing in their interactions, then I won't really know how to answer that. I might be contrasting it to a child who's very advanced or a child who's very delayed, and then my answer would be incorrect, right? So I have to know what it means when I say appropriate social behavior, and then see if this child fits in or not, and see how far off I feel the child is. So there's a subjectivity to it. The ADOS is a test that was designed to measure whether or not the child fits these criteria. Okay. So the ADOS is very different. It's all tests. There are actually some questionnaires, but most tests that are standardized tests don't directly come and ask you or ask the child, does the child give eye contact, for instance? Right. Does the child have normal language? You don't come and ask those things, because if you ask those things, your validity is gone pretty much, because the individual answering on behalf of the child will most likely be biased. Right. So if it's a parent, the parent might be very, very, very worried and therefore cover up some of the things that they're seeing, or really want to get the diagnosis and therefore embellish some of the things. It's not a real, or the parent might be very scared, and that would influence how they respond, or the parent might be very depressed, and that'll influence how they respond. So it's not a valid measurement, really, when you do a parent questionnaire. Some are, but it's very rare. With the ADOS, it's an administration standardized test, so it's a series of things. For instance, you will have the child play with a particular toys, and you'll see how the child plays. And as you're, like for instance, you'll model something and put it down, and the child is supposed to pick that up and do the same kind of thing. And if the child does, you'll realize the child is paying attention to what you're doing. They're reading the intention of what you wanted them to do, and they're doing it. Or you'll play with something in a manner, and you'll see the child what they do, and then you'll identify whether the child is able to do pretend play. Or you'll do another activity and you'll identify whether the child is able to problem solve. All tests are like that. So like IQ tests are like that. The ADOS is like that. And once you've done, and this is actually the ADOS 2, by the way, because it's been modified to fit DSM-5. So once you do that, once you are able to administer all these items, then based on, so it's kind of a backwards way. You're not really looking at the individual symptoms of autism, but you're looking at all the things that are measured in the ADOS, and then those actually go to score these items on the DSM. So for instance, let's say, let me join them for you. Let's say on the DSM, one symptom would be, does the child exhibit repetitive behaviors like lining up objects, turning the lights on and off, etc., etc.? The ADOS is a way that within a set period of time, you will make sure to observe whether the child does that or not.
So you're creating an environment in which you might see these things.
Exactly. Okay. You're interacting with the child for 1 or 2 hours. You're putting a bunch of stuff in front of the child. If he suddenly starts to line his objects up, or if he starts to take a car and just go back and forth with it repeatedly, or looks out of, any of those situations, it'll give you more of a possibility of observing the answer to that rather than just asking a parent.
Okay. That makes a certain amount of sense, because I think a lot of us have sat in the room while they've done, and we've all walked out and been furious and said,
what the hell was that?
Well, and then when the doctor says, well, here's the reason why. I remember being mad because, and I've heard so many other parents say this too, it's sort of the typical thing that we say, that there's the box of toys. toys, and I've had this done several times now with my child, and they get out the box of toys, and there's always the teapot and the little teacups. And we don't drink coffee in my household.
Yes,
and we
they're
don't have
very-
a teapot. And I was like, well, if you're going to say he has autism because he didn't know what to do with a teapot, you know, I was mad about it.
Right.
And they talked about a cookie, and we didn't allow him to have sugar, so he didn't know what a cookie was. And I was like, you picked a reference that he doesn't understand.
Yes, yes,
you know,
yes.
and that's just me being in denial. That's
Well,
what
it's
that
not
was.
necessarily. It's not necessarily, and that's a very important factor that you're bringing in. So in IQ tests across the board, they're very similar, like the Wechsler, the WIPSI,
Right.
the WISC, and so on, and the Stanford-Binet. They're all very similar. They come with these massive boxes. Well, you say box, they're
Yeah.
bigger than a suitcase, really, of items.
Yeah.
And they're extremely expensive tests as well. And they change all the time. And part of the reason they change is because of these validity issues. So over the years, they realized, for instance, that the Stanford-Binet in the old days that was being administered was not valid, for instance, for African American kids, because they would have completely exposure to different items.
Yeah.
And the language in it wasn't what they were familiar with.
Yeah.
So, you know, this is one of the reasons that schools are not allowed to administer IQ tests, because they're much broader facilities and they're all over the country, and they're in certain regions these tests are not valid.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of thing that's very important, actually, and should be considered. But, you know, you still, because it's a standardized measure, you have to have a specific object, because what you're doing is you're contrasting his response on the teapot to thousands of other kids.
Right.
And there's the only way you can actually get a standard score for a given child is to look at those normative tables,
Right.
which are thousands of other kids' responses.
Right.
So, you know, the assumption is in those thousands of other kids, there's going to be other kids that are also not exposed.
That didn't know what a teapot was, but still were inquisitive enough to try to figure it out.
It's always, you know, it's interesting you say that. You don't need to know what a teapot is. When something has a spout, you automatically know what to do with it.
But I was floating
it's
on a
funny.
river in Egypt. I was on denial, and I didn't want it to be, you know. So, but parents do get angry.
Absolutely,
We
and
go
they
in
have
for
every
that
right
2 hour, and we're like, how can you tell? And maybe he was having a good day, or maybe he was having a bad day. So that enlightens me about you're just setting up an environment in which you can efficiently look at things and get an idea.
And get an idea that you can then contrast to exactly the same scenario
Got it.
that 1,000 other kids were in.
Okay,
that's the whole
important.
concept.
Yeah.
So then it takes away the subjectivity.
Right.
So, you know, if I'm a clinician, that I've seen thousands of kids, so I pretty much I'm standard. I can look at someone in 15 minutes or so. I can tell where they are, what their diagnosis is, how far along they are, and so on. But if someone's brand new to the process, they really do have to follow these procedures and actually look up in the book and see, okay, this is a standard score of, you know, 36 and it's too low and whatever. So you have to be able to objectively contrast to other kids. That's the most important portion of standard tests. And it's a difficult process. Parents get upset. They have every right to get upset. There's a million reasons. I would lose it if I was an autism. I would completely lose it 24/7. Can you imagine? Because, like, I mean, I lose it, and I'm on behalf of all autism moms, right? Because, like, it's really ridiculous that there's, I don't want to say a number, but there's a lot of professionals who really don't know what they're doing or what they're talking about, which is why I lose it on them. And I can't even imagine if they were the ones guiding me what to do with my child. I'd kill them. You know, it's terrible.
It's frustrating. And you don't know what the person's credentials are walking into the office.
It doesn't matter. Their credentials could be the top credentials in the universe.
Right.
You know, graduated from Harvard and this and that and the other thing, and they still wouldn't know what they're telling you to do is wrong. There's a very huge disconnect out there in regards to the actual practice of what to do with kids with autism. It's just, and there's a huge disconnect because a lot of professionals still feel that our kids this is lifelong, they're never going to improve. The medical field has not accepted that things do better if you join in with the behavioral field.
Yeah.
Neither has the behavioral field. We were just talking about that. And the fact that there's still all these disconnections out there with professionals fighting and saying ridiculous things to parents is annoying. I can understand parents getting upset.
It is frustrating. But I think part of it is that we just haven't always understood. One of the times that my child was evaluated, and it was by a funding source, and I sat with my husband for 2 hours in a room, and what the guy did was he would try different things, and my son wouldn't participate, and then he would take and he would blow up a balloon and he would let it go around the room. And we did this for 2 hours. And we walked out and my husband said, are they paying that guy? Because, but looking back on it, with what I know now, he wasn't saying anything, but he would blow the balloon and he would let it fly around the room, let it go. But he was watching my son to see what reaction. Does. And, but at the time, my husband was like, seriously, they need to take him off the payroll. That man is not doing his job. And he's going to write a report. I think sometimes we don't understand what's the method is. So,
well, yeah, and the clinician in charge should really be explaining things a little bit better to the parents as well. Obviously, it's not your child is not a guinea pig.
But this is why people need to come and see you, because you do it right and you explain it to people. A lot of times you're sitting there and they will say, you ask a question, they're like, I'm evaluating the child, don't talk.
Yeah, that's crazy.
They don't, the parents aren't a part of it for them. But, that's why we talk to Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh. Yes. That's why you are a visionary. That's why we thank you so much for being here. And on that note, we should give you a break. So we're going to take a short break, and we're going to be back with more questions from you for Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh. Stick with us.
Hello, fellow activists. Last week, we talked about step number 1, accept and embrace this challenge. Now we're moving on to step number 2, educate yourself. After my son Wyatt was diagnosed, I put up a sign over my home office that said Autism Central. I went to school in my home office every night after my husband and Wyatt had gone to bed, because I was determined to learn everything there was about autism. That's because knowledge is power. Visit all the autism websites you can, read all the books you can, learn about all the organizations that are out there that offer free guides to help you. Some of them even offer mentors to help guide you. Find out about local support services. Find out about what educational services your child is entitled to. Get to every autism conference and seminar you can. I'll never forget the first autism conference that I went to. The first speaker was a beautiful, brilliant woman named Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh. She spoke about a therapy called Applied Behavioral Analysis, or ABA. She told about how it could improve the life of children with autism, and in some cases, recover them. Now, despite the fact that Wyatt had been diagnosed for over a year, nobody had told me about this therapy. I remember calling my husband on the cell phone and saying, honey, I met the woman who is going to help improve Wyatt's life. And I'm happy to say that 8 years later, that's true. Are you feeling a little overwhelmed by all the information that's out there? Well, you're not alone. But try different approaches for your child. Trust your gut. Just 40 short years ago, mothers were told if their child had autism that they would have to be institutionalized, and in some cases they were actually blamed for their child's autism for failing to bond with the child. That was called refrigerator mother syndrome. Well, thank goodness times have changed. So until next time, learn everything you can about autism and keep the faith.
Welcome back to Ask Dr. Doreen. We're here with Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh, and she is answering your questions, and I want to get right into another one. Hi, Dr. Doreen and Shannon. My son is 3.5 years old, and he's been with CARD for 6 months. I decided to get him 40 hours of ABA and hold off on what the school had offered, which was an autism class, 3 hours a day for 5 days. My question is ABA going to catch him up on all aspects of behavior and education to when he goes to school he will survive? His twin sister is attending a preschool, and I know not to compare the two, but she's learning a lot of things that he's not. So I'm afraid that he, as he is learning most things, which, by the way, he masters all of his goals really fast, but hardly generalizing any of it. He will be falling behind in a lot of other things, and we're back to square one. Dr. Jonathan always says 40 hours of ABA is most effective for young kids. Please explain to me how ABA will catch him up. And she says, love you guys. We love you back.
We do love you back. We totally love you back. You're the type of parent that really makes a big difference. So, and it's 3, right? The child's 3?
3.5.
Yeah, so don't worry right now. I can understand you're worried. First of all, girls are always slightly ahead of boys in that age range. So it's a bad situation to compare to a sibling, so don't do that. But here's how it goes. You focus initially, you only have 40 hours. I mean, ideally we should have 60 or 70 hours, but with 40 hours, you focus on the things that are the most delayed and the most important to begin with. So what they should be focusing on is language development right now, and unless he's delayed in motor, at which point they would go back to that. Adaptive, obviously, is going to, like potty training, things like that have to be in place as well at 3.5. And it's going to be a lot of language. And then it's going to start going into play social, cognition, executive functioning, and all these areas, and they all have their own activities and lessons. The way that you catch up is just like tutoring. So if you think of a child who's fallen behind, so I'm jumping ahead. We will teach him academic, don't worry. We will teach him more advanced things that his sibling is probably getting right now, don't worry. We will teach him everything he needs in order to be able to do well in the environment. And we will also teach him how to learn rapidly from looking and observing, so that he'll learn much more rapidly. But in the first year of treatment, also in the first and second year, you really are doing a lot of more, especially in the first year, much more sort of discrete trial type of intervention. And you're not focusing as much on generalization. There is some generalization, but it is much more just rapid learning. And you can learn a lot faster with a standard protocol like discrete trial, like sitting down and presenting stimuli to someone, than walking around in the environment. It's just faster, that's all. Mm-hmm. Once he's mastered those things, though, your supervisor should, anything that he masters in the discrete trial format should then be generalized to the environment while you move on to a new discrete trial thing. So discrete trial is kind of like the introduction, and everything pops into a maintenance and generalization log while you're still teaching ongoing concepts, because there's a billion concepts that have to be taught. If that isn't happening, or if you're ever concerned about whether or not your child is getting the right type of oversight and supervision, all you have to do is call the clinical director of CARD, Evelyn Kung, and she'll set up an evaluation of your whole program. I mean, right now we have a ton of people doing the evaluations. So we have all of our TAS group, which is our analytics group. Really, they're the ones that analyze the data. They look at every child's skills, and they're constantly evaluating whether the programs are right, the behavior interventions are right, and they do overlaps with the families, with the supervisors, with the staff, etc. All of ARG, our Autism Research Group, Dr. Jonathan's group, they all observe the behavioral interventions, and they go in and train the staff. Vince Redmond, who's been on this show many times, Vince, for instance, will deal with all other parent training issues and train you to a point where you become sort of like a supervisor, and you learn everything in the course of the time that you're here. There's a massive amount of that sort of stuff happening. And so don't worry, I'm pretty sure that you're getting oversight, especially right now. I mean, I implemented this at the beginning of this year, and there's I would say 20% of every case is just pure supervision from senior staff over the case. So don't worry, it's a lot of supervision. Having said that, the trajectory is just like tutoring. Let's say a child falls down on math or something, and you tutor them, and they're rapidly learning faster than their peers, so they eventually catch up. And when you look at our kids, they have a trajectory that before intervention was sort of flat, so of acquisition, right? So they weren't learning as rapidly. Maybe he lost 2 years, 3 years of learning. Learning is usually a trajectory like this. So in other words, when time goes by, we keep learning. So you learn how how much you learn and how much time goes by, and it goes up evenly. With our kids, it has flattened out. Now what we do with this intervention is we're starting to make that angle shift a little bit. So the typical 3-year-old, let's say the typical 2-year-old is going like this, and our kid was like this before. Now they're beginning to start joining, and eventually by 5 or so they'll hit the same line. So that maybe by 5 or 6, depending on how rapidly he's learning, the 2 lines meet. He will now join back the rate of learning that he should have had all along, and then we sort of fade off and let him go. So that's kind of the process. And, you know, feel free to try to get on my calendar. I always tell people this. I book far out, like 6 months to a year out, but I still love seeing our kids and kind of just checking in with the supervisors and doing a quick review of the program, and then letting the parents know what you're looking at going forward. You should also ask your supervisor at the next clinic to show you skills. It annoys me sometimes that I keep repeating this, but supervisors should be reviewing skills profiles with the parents, and that really will give you a kind of an idea of where you're going.
And we get these kinds of questions from parents in this first year of intensive behavioral intervention a lot. And there's a special place in my heart for all of you, because I so painfully remember that first year.
Yeah, it's hard.
Of you know, that period of time of, you know, finding out I got to get the ABA, fighting to get the ABA, jumping through all the hoops for it to start, and then feeling like, okay, I don't understand what you guys are doing. You told me you were going to catch him up. When is that happening? How is that going to gel? You're working on these little things. I don't see him incorporating that. How is this going to work? And getting myself into a dither.
Yeah, I see.
Pacing the floor and going, when is this all going to make sense? And I was saying to somebody the other day, I only got to have one pregnancy that led to a baby.
Mm-hmm.
I had one miscarriage and one that led to Jem. And I so wished I could do that again so that I could enjoy it. Yeah. Because I couldn't. I was too nervous the whole time I was pregnant about what's going to happen. Is it going to be okay because of the miscarriage? And I love watching the A Word, because I get to go back and enjoy the process and know what the outcome is, because you don't know how it all gels. And for me, I now know how it all gels. So I'd love to go back and enjoy each one of those victories that my child had.
That's so true. And the A Word is spectacular simply because of that, because it shows you everything, and you can just sit in a week and watch a couple of years of progress. But what it is a really good point, which is why I just recently asked Vince this week and last week to start calling every parent when they first start and spending a couple of hours with them on the phone, explaining to them how this is going to progress. Yeah. And that's just a very important thing.
It is. And know that I think it's normal that you're feeling all the things that you're feeling, but it is amazing when you get to the 1 year mark and you look back at all the things. But there will come a time when and each child is different, and I guess it comes together in a different way and at a different time, but all of a sudden they get it. And I think always of that Annie Sullivan, Helen Keller moment where she did all those things to get her to understand one word. And then once she understood one word, then Helen understood how to learn, and it all exploded. I think our kids are a lot the same way. Once they finally get it, it's amazing.
It's so fast. It's so rapid. It is. Some of my kids that are just like, they have absolutely no vocalization, and then you pair their vocalization through a MAND training. Mm-hmm. You kind of pair a vocalization, let's say a sound, with an object that they really like. The instant they get that, then all sounds become meaningful.
It's like all the barriers come down, and it's crazy good. And I'm longing for that for you, and can't wait till you have that moment and you see it. But hang in there. You're doing a great job. We're going to take another break and come back with more questions for Dr. Granpeesheh. Stick with us.
Hi, this is Lisa Ackerman, back again, Talk of Facts. Wanted to share with one of the most popular questions that we get, and that is, do children with autism recover? I don't know how to say it loud enough. Yes! scream it from the mountaintops. We've seen it and witnessed it for over a decade at TACA. Thousands of children that lose their diagnosis. They become indistinguishable from their peers following therapeutics and medical intervention. And in 2013, the NIH, the National Institute of Health, agreed. They studied children that had an autism diagnosis and did an in-depth analysis, and yes, so showed that children with autism actually can recover. And what I'm so excited about is the odds are in your favor. The study concluded that 10 to 20% of children with autism will recover after intensive early intervention and therapeutics and medical intervention. You may be thinking, wait, 10, 20%? That doesn't seem like a big number. Let me tell you why it is. For decades, we've been told autism is a no hope, nothing you can do. And what we know today is, yes, there is hope. So now that people know that recovery is possible, it's actually an option that can happen for families that, put what they can into the journey and, God willing, get their kid through the other side so they can live their lives in a beautiful way. I'm excited to share with you that recovery is possible. So now we can all shoot for that together.
Welcome back to Autism Live and to Ask Dr. Doreen. We have Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh with us, and she's a true visionary in the field of autism. It's such a joy and a treat for her to be here, and she's answering your questions. We had a question come in on the live feature for Dr. Doreen. I am a skills user as a parent with my 5-year-old son, and I want, all in capital letters, this awesome RBT certification. It is at the top of my to-do list. I've already started my 40 hours of training with IBT. My question is CARD IBT doing anything about people having access to steps after the 40-hour training? To my understanding from watching a previous episode of Autism Live, once I do my 40 hours, I have to be given a competency test. Can CARD give me that test via a live chat? Then after I'm certified for a year, 5% of my therapy must be certified by a BCBA. Can I pay CARD for the supervised hours with my son as a skills user once I'm certified? I'm determined to do this, but without help after my 40 hours, it sounds like I can't. I already started my 40 hours of training with IBT. Please help me understand what to do next. So sad and confused. Thank you in advance. Well, I hear you saying you're sad and confused, but I think you're a warrior mom.
Yeah, absolutely. No, not at all. Don't be sad or confused at all. The RBT, the test itself, I think, is being administered through, if I'm not wrong, if they haven't done it yet, the BACB. But it's an online thing that should be pretty easy to do. Everything else we can do. Yep. Like, we can continue your training, we can give you the CE, we can give you the mentorship, the supervision, everything, IBT. So no, you're not at all abandoned. It's not past the, and feel free to please talk to Catherine Peters at IBT or anyone at IBT, and they'll help you through this. RBT, Registered Behavior Technician, is a brand new concept that the Behavior Analysis Certification Board has come up with. And it's a very, very minimal amount of training, which is sort of less than what we do with our junior therapists, but it does involve some practical training, which is very, very good. And up till now, we've been doing it for 100 years, but no one else has ever done real practical training with the junior therapist level. So to hear from Shannon and from you that parents are interested in it would have never occurred to me, because parents are so overwhelmed and busy and have so much on their plate. But it delights me because we're currently running a lot of research showing the impact of really well-trained parents and how different it is when the parent is very, very well-trained. Now, I don't think RBT is enough, to be honest with you, because RBT, again, is not autism specific. RBT is just teaching you behavioral techniques, which is spectacular, and you need to have all of that. But where does IBT, we've started to do this now, IBT will actually give you an additional certificate if you go through their program, where it'll not only be sufficient for RBT, it'll be above and beyond, and it'll train you more for autism and for what to do with your child. It's much more practical. It's not theoretical. It's a practical training. And so, yes, you should absolutely do that. And, I encourage you, and don't be sad or confused. We will hold your hand through this. We're very proud of parents who are willing to do something like that.
I love it. And I think part of, I was saying this the other day when we had Cecilia Knight with us on the show, training is always something that's wonderful, and parents always want information. But if we can be killing 3 birds with 1 stone, I think that's when we get extra motivated and excited. If I can be the best possible trained parent to be with my child, that's a plus for me, right? But if I have a certification that says not only do I know I'm trained, but I can say to somebody, here's the designation, I'm an RBT certified, then when I go to the IEP, I have more, they know now that I know what I'm talking about too.
Absolutely. In fact,
right? It's that
That's right, and we'll make it so that you can actually. So our certificate will probably be skills certification. So you could be RBT and skills certified, and you'll be way above the field.
There you go. And then I think a lot of parents are saying, "Hey, if I have to learn this anyway because I need to learn this for my child, let it be useful. Let me be able to use it for another child." A lot of people are saying, "Look, if this is going to be my career anyway, then let's make this my career."
Right.
And why not? Why not be smart about it? Because everybody has to keep a roof over the head too.
Absolutely, and in fact, some parents, as you know, Shannon, have actually gone forward and gotten their BCBA and have started practices, and they work very effectively with us as affiliates. I mean, really fabulous parents, who've made a huge difference not only in their own child's life but multiple other kids as well, which is amazing. So yes, all these opportunities exist. What I've been trying to learn and understand from parents is realistically their commitment and their time availability. My life, I don't have children with autism, but I work very hard, so I leave here. Last night I left here at 7:30, but I leave the office probably somewhere closer to 6 every day. When I get home, I am just cooking, and I cook and I take care of the kids, and I talk to them about their homework and make sure they've done what they're supposed to do, and honestly, and I spend time with them, my 3 children, and before I sit down, it's past 9 o'clock, and then at that, and I try to keep my own health, and so therefore I want a half an hour of working out or whatever it is, and so really when I sit down, it is 9 o'clock, and which is probably the reason I don't sleep until 12, because I want 3 hours of looking at my phone and emails and whatever else. But the issue is, when do you find time? If I was to hear now, but of course we do everything for our kids, we really do, and it is extremely empowering when you learn this stuff, because then nothing ever scares you, and you always know how to deal with situations. That is the biggest thing. Of course, is it empowers you. But realistically, I would love to hear from the parents who are our viewers, what is your capacity? How much can you handle? Because if you can handle it, I have it. I'll give you as much training as you want. I mean, IBT itself has hundreds of hours of training. And do you want it live? Do you want it webcam? Will you go to a class? Will you get online? Do you want it to be an e-learning format? Do you want to have the ability to talk to someone? How do you want it to be practicum, so that you actually experience with another child? What's reality for you?
Yeah. And I would love it if people wrote in and said, and I think you're going to get a wide variety of responses, but I will tell you that I think that being able to be flexible and have this e-learning so that you can do it at 2 o'clock in the morning if you need to, or do it on that Saturday afternoon when you've got somebody who can help you, that's really key. I wished we'd had that in my early days.
Right.
I would have been all over that like white on rice.
And what can we do to improve that? Maybe we can include more video, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean and I think people should write in and say what they want to hear. But I do love the idea that there's another certification, because what a lot of parents are trying to do is try to figure out, how do I work and take care of my child? And if there's something that solves both of those things, or is setting you up for work someplace down the road, and we all know that autism isn't going away, the incidence has gone up, that we don't need a few foot soldiers, we need an army.
Right.
And if there's a way that we can be productive at both those things at the same time, I'm speaking for myself here, but I would have done that right away. And there was a moment when I considered being a BCBA, but the amount of schooling that you had to do then to be away from home, I couldn't do.
Yeah.
So I'm here.
Got it. No, I hear you. I completely get it. Of course.
But I think, and I'm hearing from parents, and I loved this question because I thought, oh, I understand that. If I'm going to get the training anyway, let me get the certification so it serves me in another way.
Absolutely. And what we're doing that's specifically why our credential prepares you for RBT, gets you the RBT credential, and then gives you a couple of more areas. Because I think that's also what we do for RBCBAs. If you think about it, all of our RBCBAs who come to CARD, we give them another 6 months of training.
Yeah.
And the reason we do that is because we feel, not to be insulting to the BCBA credential, it's a very good credential, but it's not autism specific. And so what we do is we tag on. And the same thing with RBT, we are tagging on very, very specific additional training that's not required, but it will get you through, and in about the same amount of time, you'll know more. So.
Great stuff. Now, we've had 3 different questions come in about IEPs.
Okay.
One who's wanting to know, first IEP is coming up, daughter just diagnosed, has no words. Another person says, I need help writing goals and objectives for my son's IEP on April 29th. It's the first one that I will be present for since his diagnosis. And I want to be prepared and would appreciate assistance or guidance in this area. My son is 4.5.
Got it.
That's from a dad that wrote in. We love it when our dads write in. And then there was another one saying, how involved should I be at the IEP as a parent?
Great,
How much?
Great. We'll hit all of those.
Yeah.
So you need to be very involved in the IEP. In other words, don't be shy and don't step back. This is your child. You get to make the canvas. And by law, you have the right to make that canvas. So it's your right. Here's what I would do. You don't have a lot of time. First thing is I want to make sure you know your rights and your child's rights. So I would go online and I would Google what are my rights during an IEP, and it's standard documentation that you can download from the Department of Education. It's just easier if you Google it, and then you can print it out and read that. It's like a 2-page thing, and it'll tell you everything. You don't have to sign the IEP. You just have to say you were present. If you disagree, you can have the right to. There's all these things you should know. Second thing is I would immediately get on skills. This is the fastest way I can help you right now is get on skills, skillsforautism.com. Skillsforautism.com, either a 4 or FOR, it doesn't matter. Get on there, answer the index for your child. Plug your child's name in, your date of birth, etc., and answer all the questions. This will take you time. It takes about an hour per year of age. So depending on how old your child is, you'll have that much time just to answer the questions.
It's worth it, though. It's such a great investment in your child and in your relationship with your child.
Absolutely.
Really incredible.
And once you answer those questions, you will then get a treatment plan. It'll tell you the things that you have to teach. And you can go in there and you can select the more basic ones. So what I would do is think if your child's, let's say 3, you're looking at, this is the child who's supposed to receive a 40-hour program. And I'm writing up a paper I've mentioned a few times on the standards, but generally as I'm writing it, I'm noticing pretty much if your child's between 3 and 6, you should be getting a full program. So, or 2 and anything below 6. So you should really start and pick programs assuming that you're doing a 40-hour program. 40-hour program means, sometimes people ask about this. So what that means is that in a given week, your child's receiving approximately 40 hours of direct one-to-one ABA intervention. So that means, let's say it's Monday morning, and so 40, let's try to divide it by 6. So it's approximately 6 to 7 hours a day, 6 days a week. You want to give you 1 day of family time. You don't need it. This is awesome, but then divide it by 7. Like, try to go across the entire week. Mm-hmm. So you'll be doing, let's say, 6 hours a day, and in that 6-hour time frame, that means you will have 3 sessions of 2 hours each, or 2 sessions of 3 hours each, depending on how your child can handle things and what age and so on. When you have a 2-hour session, so let's say you'll go 8 to 10, you'll have a little break, 12 to 2, a little break, and then 3 to 5, whatever, something like that. Or spread it out even more. When you have those sessions, the session itself is broken down multiple times. So every 3 minutes or 1 to 3 minutes, your child gets a small 1 or 2 minute break. So it sounds like a lot, but it's a lot of playfulness and a lot of reward and a lot of teaching. That's how the session is. So now based on that amount of time, you want to pick your lessons. Your lessons will depend on the areas of deficit. So when you look at, I have to do this. This is one of the things on skills recommendations. I have to fix this so parents understand this whole process better. Which is essentially, if my child is, let's say, the typical type of I don't want to say typical, but the type of child that I see the most, let's say, that child will have very severe delays in social and language, most likely. So I would be focusing on those domains if it's a 3-year-old. So I'd want to have, let's say, the overall that you want to have is somewhere around 20-25 programs. So I'd probably have about 4 or 5 language lessons, maybe 2 or 3 in social, maybe 1 or 2 in play, depending on the child's age. 1 or 2 in adaptive. If the child's already at the level where I can put in some executive functioning, I will, as well as cognition, maybe 1 cognition, and then some motor if the child has motor. Probably not doing much academic until the child's after 5 or 4.5, 5. So that's sort of the mishmash of things, and then I pick the ones that are the most severely delayed because there's going to be prerequisites to other stuff.
Right.
And once I've picked those, I go into those particular lessons. So I put those in my treatment plan and skills. I go into that lesson, and there you have your objective. Your IEP goal is written in there.
Yeah.
So, for instance, let's say I will pick, I want to teach the child, I don't know, prepositions, just as a basic language lesson, or I want to teach the child, brushing their teeth as an adaptive, or I want to teach the child kicking a ball as a motor, or, whatever it may be. Once I pick those and put them in my little shopping cart of this is his current treatment plan, and I go to each lesson, prepositions, there will be 4 prepositions, several IEP goals, from the most basic to the most advanced. The most basic might be, put on top. So you're teaching the child to put an object on top of another, next to it, behind it, under it, and so on, receptively. That'll have an IEP goal written in there. Or the most advanced, perhaps, would be, where is the blue pen? And then the child is supposed to say the blue pen is on top of the yellow notepad. Whatever. I mean, it can get much more advanced. So, but every form of prepositions will have an IEP report goal. So you just take those IEP goals and put them together, and that's your IEP report. We are right now. I just saw from this director of skills yesterday, sent me an email. She's pushing forward for skills to just generate automatically your IEP report for you,
amazing.
Which will be coming out now soon, right after I get skills book out, which is a little bit more important. But you can do that very easily now, and that will really help you. And yeah, be involved in your IEP and show them that you know what you're talking about.
2 years ago, I've been to so many IEP meetings now, and 2 years ago I went in with goals from skills.
Yeah.
And I went in with the confidence of knowing these are age appropriate, these are skill appropriate for my child, these are exactly what he needs, and I have them in the language. And it was a game changer. It was a total game changer. And it was a stress-free IEP. I was well slept. I was actually prepared instead of being as prepared as I thought I could be. And my child's program changed as a result of having those skills IEP goals. So I wholeheartily encourage you to do everything that Dr. Granpeesheh just said. And by the way, if you go to skillsforautism.com, you can get a 14-day free trial of skills and do it. I mean, you've got an IEP coming up on the 29th. The one parent who wrote in, you've got time to do this by then. So I encourage you to do that. We're out of time. But
so sorry.
I know, me too. But we get another chance next week. And so keep the questions coming in. We thank Dr. Granpeesheh for being with us. We're going to take a break now and go to the A Word. This is that documentary that we were talking about. It's ongoing, following a little boy who was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2.5, and you get to see how this early intensive behavioral intervention works in the home, and you can watch the entire thing. We show 1 episode a week, and we sort of we'll talk about some of the different concepts that are going on, and this is a very vital week because we see how frustrating it is for this little boy. There's a moment in this week's episode when he doesn't understand what's happening, and you see the dawning realization from the parent about how essential it is to get that functional communication going and how much easier things will be once that's in place. So I encourage you to watch this episode, and then if you want to see how it turns out, you can watch ahead in the episode. But I've seen this little boy, and he is amazing, and those parents are amazing. So check out the A Word, and then when we come back, Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson will be joining me for Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. Brianna Shaffer from Play Your Part Music Therapy and Lessons is going to be with us. It's a really exciting day. So first, the A Word.
Very, very glamorous way of eating. Good boy. Thank you for taking a bite.
It's been about 1 week since Jack Riley's therapist began the feeding program with him. Feeding has been a major behavioral issue for Jack Riley. He refuses to feed himself and typically swats away food when his parents or others attempt to feed him. Up until a week ago, Cheryl and Mike would play a movie or give him toys to distract him in order to get a bite in. During clinic, Jack Riley's supervisor, Sabrina, suggested pausing the movie to motivate him to feed himself so he is able to get his reward.
Okay, let's take a bite. Okay. Oops, I didn't do it. I just touched it. Take a bite. Good. Very good.
Good eating.
Good bite. One more bite. Oh, that's a good one.
Nice.
Yay. Can you take a third one for Mama? Oh. I know. Especially with yogurt. Hi.
Hi, buddy.
There you go. You did great. Oh yeah, he never fed himself yogurt. When we do it at night, I'll do applesauce with the video and then bring this out for the other stuff just to wake it up.
Kit.
Take a bite. Kit. Good talking. Kit. Good.
Good eating too, buddy.
That's a little bitty bite, but it counts. Yay!
How do you feel about that it's so dependent on the iPhone?
He'll take 3 bites in between games, so I think eventually it'll be 4 bites, and eventually it'll be finish the soup, and you can have the iPhone. So I think we can work it. That's been less than a week of just limiting that even, so he'll do it. I think if he's got a big enough reward at the end, he'll do it. Take a bite. Pea soup. Huge bite. Holy schmoly.
Good job, kiddo.
Yay! That was really good. You want to take another bite? Oh, it's cat. It's totally worth another bite. It's totally worth. Let's take 3 bites. You can do it. That'll count. I'll give you credit since it's pea soup. Mommy wouldn't eat that.
So the self-feeding just happened in this past week?
Since Sabrina suggested to pause the video, which I thought would never work. I thought it would just make him mad. And he has gotten mad. We've had some tantrums, to say the least, but he's kind of starting to figure out that we're not kidding.
Daddy.
Daddy?
Papa.
Daddy and Mommy.
Mommy.
And Papa. Do you see Papa?
Papa.
What? Baby.
Papi.
Baby.
Papi.
Mommy or baby? I don't know.
Papi.
Mommy, baby. Mommy,
Papa.
baby, baby.
Papa. Baby.
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 Is he a baby too?
I'm not a baby. Baby.
Baby.
Hold on. Look, Jack Riley, look. What is this? Baby.
Jessica continues teaching functional pretend play to Jack Riley. The reason is so he's able to play appropriately with his toys and be able to interact with other kids when preschool begins.
Knock, knock. Let's go. Let's go. You do it. Let's go.
And we're also doing a token system now where he has to sit and earn 3 tokens before he's able to get up, just so that he sits longer, and he also has a visual so that he knows that, okay, when I get all my stickers, then I can go play and do whatever it is that I want him to do. Play! So now we're having him do 3 things for us first, and then letting him go. What is it? It's an iguana. Yeah. Iguana. Good try. That's iguana. Very good. It looks like a guitar. It's a violin. Is it violin?
Baby.
Yeah, violin. It love how you're saying all your words, especially all the new words. So what's that one? Umbrella. You say it? Umbrella. Good. So we're having him identify labels, but also using a full sentence response. So instead of just saying chicken, we're having him say it's a chicken, just so we can develop his language a little better. And he just gets used to labeling things that way. All right.
Bubble.
Yeah, bubbles. You want more?
The bubble.
Okay, sit down. We gotta get our stickers. Yeah. Okay. All the way. Sit down all the way. Thank you. What is it? Say it's. No, look better. Jack Riley, do you want bubbles? Do you want bubbles? Do you want bubbles?
Bubble.
Yeah, okay. What is it? Say it's. Yeah, it's a chicken. Good job. 2 more stickers. Look. Okay, what is it? Say it's. Yeah, it's a chicken. 1 more. What is it? Good job. There you go, Jack. You get your bubbles. Good job. Look. All your stickers. It took us a few days to even get him to say it's a, so he was just saying chicken because he knows what it is. But yeah, today it's he's saying a chicken, and then at the end he said it's a chicken. So that's actually pretty good. No, sit down, and then you get bubbles. No, Jack Riley. Okay, come on, sit down, and then I give you bubbles. Yeah. There you go. That's it down. Here we go. All right, can you try? Okay, ready? Sit down. No, you need to sit down. No, try again. Sit down.
Sit down, buddy.
Ow. No, try again, honey. Whoa. Sit down, buddy. Okay, you try, okay? Yay! You try. Ready? Sit down. Okay. This is sit down, bud. Okay? Okay, you try. Jack Riley, try.
As you saw earlier, sit down is a task Jack Riley knows how to do. Right now, Jessica is establishing compliance and consistency in following requests.
Okay. Hey, bud. Hey. You try again. Okay. No. Try again, buddy. Better chair. All right. Let's use that one, okay? Okay. Ready? Ready? Sit down. That's it. Bubbles. Jack, first, and then you get bubbles. Okay. Show me how you sit. Do you want bubbles? Sit down. That's it down. Now, Jack Riley, try all by yourself. Okay?
Show me. I'm ready. Show me how you sit.
Sit down.
Sit down.
Sit down.
Sit down.
Sit down. Okay, all by yourself.
Show me how you sit.
Ready? Sit down. There you go. That's sitting. There you go, bud. Bubbles.
Can you show me?
You want these? Or you want those?
You want to show me how you sit? I know, it was hard, wasn't it? Oh.
See, now I think it's just more attention. It's all attention. He's just waiting for Mike to go over there. Or he's pooping.
That would be a better reason.
He's going right. Of course, I didn't sweep under there, right? So it's like he's got to be wearing it.
Do you think he might be pooping?
Well, there would be a reason why he'd want to go into a private spot and get a minute, and if we weren't giving him that minute to do it, that could be why he went a little nutty there.
He's definitely due.
That could be. I mean, that definitely makes him mad, and I've caught him a few times where I try to get him like up on the chair at bedtime, and something tells me that it's not the time to fight him, and I'll let him down, and he'll go in the corner and do his business.
The reason Jack Riley's behavior was so intense was because he couldn't communicate his needs. This is why language is so important. Without it, how can he let others know his wants and desires?
We need to teach him that. I have to go to the bathroom, guys. Give me a minute. That's all I had to say. It's like, bubbles are nice, but I got stuff to do. Feel better, buddy?
Good morning and welcome to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. I'm Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson.
And I'm Shannon Penrod. And I'm so thrilled to be sitting next to you with cans on our forehead.
With cans on our forehead. Do we need to remind everybody what this is about?
I think we should, in case somebody didn't see last week.
Yes, which is possibly the case, I would imagine.
So Nancy and I have been talking about how we want to do something to stand in solidarity with those families who have not been able to access services.
Yes.
So we came up with this idea of CAN, and it stands for Coverage for Autism Now, to help stand together. We need solidarity on some things, right? And on this, we need to make sure that nobody forgets that there are still families that, because they have Medi-Cal or Medicare and it's not covered, that they haven't gotten service.
Or because their states have not allowed services to be covered under insurance.
Exactly.
And there's states that this is up for debate, and
we're even going to be talking about one of those states.
Yes, which is
Kansas.
Voted it down or voted it in?
They voted it in, and we're waiting for the governor's signature today.
Governor's signature, yeah.
So
I gotta keep up with all these. But one state recently,
South Dakota voted it down, defeated it.
Thank you for being so up on all these
I'm not,
issues.
So it scares me that you consider that I am. But in any case, and also for the families that have insurance reform, but the copay and deductible is beyond what they can cover. So many of our military families.
And this is what, I'm going to urge you right now to go to the autism-today.org website and log on to our military families page. I think it's on the home page. And donate anything you can to the run. $1, $10. There's strength in numbers, and what we hope to raise with the run is money that's going primarily to go to military families for copays, because we have several providers that have military families, ABA providers around the country, that their military families cannot afford their copay. And what can happen with that is they can be discharged from the service. They can face serious consequences, and some of these families are between a rock and a hard place, and I think it's appalling that we are in a situation where people that have served protecting their country that can't afford copays can't get enough help.
Well, and I will say, a couple of you asked a question yesterday that was kind of kicking my keister. You wanted to know what kind of an assembly could you do for little elementary kids to raise autism awareness and autism acceptance. And I said, gosh, I'm really going to have to think about that. What kind of a school assembly could you do? And I'm thinking, do a fundraiser. Do some sort of a fundraiser, whether it's that each kid comes and they're gonna skip across a line and they raise 50 cents. But if every single one of those kids raise 50 cents, do a little sporting
thing, have sack races,
and that's a way that you can raise awareness, right? And kids feel like they're doing something, that there's a cause, that they're helping other kids.
They can be activists. That's what we call it, activists. They can be kid activists. Autism Care and Treatment Today.
Yeah, there you go.
Contact us if you want to set something like that up.
That'd be a great assembly.
Yeah.
Now, when the numbers came out, the new numbers, you and I did a lot of different television spots,
we did.
And you did one in particular that we want to show, and they said that we could.
Yes, they did.
Tell us about where
this is Home and Family, which is a national show that is on the Hallmark Channel.
Lovely show.
And yeah, it is a lovely show, and it's a 2-hour show, and it's so beautifully produced. Woody Frazier, who I used to know from my years in television, and the wonderful hosts, Christina Ferrari and Mark Steins, and they are just they're so compassionate and very informed, and they wanted to do something as it was coming into Autism Awareness Day on autism and also on the increase in numbers because that had just come out.
Yes.
So I did an interview with them, and it was really on my personal journey.
Yes.
And so we wanted to take a look at that.
Absolutely. So take a look. This is Nancy. It's called the
Home and Family. Home and Family show on Hallmark.
Okay.
We're back. April is a very important month because it is National Autism Awareness Month. And here with us talking about that is Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson, and she's the Executive Director of ACT Today, which stands for Autism Care and Treatment. Welcome. It's nice to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
You speak of this from the heart.
I do.
Because you live this journey.
Has been
Still do.
This is my journey and, in a way, my calling, I believe. I was a television producer and executive. I mean, we both know each other from those days. And, you know, I was one of those women that, career women, thought that I could have it all and kind of forgot to have the kid on the way to all of that. And I met a wonderful man, married him in my late 30s, second marriage. We then started trying to have a family. Didn't come easy. Tried everything, in vitro, infertility, egg donor, adoptions. Finally, we adopted a beautiful baby boy when I was 46. We named him Wyatt, and he was perfect. I mean, it was my dream. It was the most blissful first year. It was everything I dreamed motherhood would be. And then something started to change.
Were you working then, by the way, or you were working?
I had kind of given up. As you know, television is quite demanding. In that first year, I'd taken a little time off, written some books, and then...
what did you start noticing that was going
Well,
that was
somewhere around a year and a half into 2, he started getting very hyperactive. He was an early developer, by the way. He walked early. He talked early. I remember being so proud when we were raised up in the mommy and me class, right?
What a beautiful
but that's actually when he started to disappear. At about a year and a half.
What do you mean disappear? What does that mean?
He stopped making eye contact. His talking went away. I mean, he was talking and then he stopped talking. He started having horrible tantrums. He put his head through our kitchen window twice during a tantrum.
How old was he when
this was at around 2. Now, my calls to the pediatrician were met with, he's a boy. Boys are often late talkers. They get frustrated because of this. And of course, I was in denial. I didn't want to hear anything was wrong. And so finally, a neighbor suggested to me that she thought he had autism. And I was furious with her.
Why?
Because I didn't want my child to have autism. And I'm like, why do you think he has autism? So I called the pediatrician, and he said, well, this is like the trendiest new disease, like ADD. And listen, I don't blame him. He's a good pediatrician. He just didn't know. And quite frankly, I was in denial about a lot of things.
What about your husband? Was he in denial?
He was not in the denial I was in. He, starting about, when Wyatt was about 2, he said, something's really wrong here. Now, one of the reasons I think I was in denial was because I had grown up with a brother with Down syndrome, my younger brother. And my mother had devoted her life to him, literally. And through my lens of being this professional woman, I didn't want to be stuck at home with a disabled child.
There's your mom.
There's David, and there's my mom, Frances. Now, what an amazing woman she was.
Well, you must have seen what it took of her, the challenges
of course,
she faced.
and some of the strain that put on our family. And so it was my worst fear. Here I was living my mother's life.
Oh, my goodness.
And so I was in denial. And then finally, at the age of 3, I took him in. The pediatrician said he's at least a year delayed. Then there was the wild goose chase for a diagnosis. Now, we're talking 10 years ago. At that time, believe it or not, there was not the awareness we have today.
Yeah.
And so some of the
Thanks
signs...
to months like this, by the way, April.
Right, exactly. So I don't blame him. I really look at my own denial. But finally, I got busy. And also, I hit the wall. I remember one pivotal moment.
Well, we have some video that you provided for us.
Yes, and what he was like
at around 3.5.
Yeah, at around 3.5.
Okay,
so let's take a look at that, and you'll see.
So was this a normal routine he would go through?
This was what he was like pretty much 24/7.
Really?
Yes.
He never ran out of gas. He just
never
had
ran
that-
out of gas, never made eye contact. This is at around 3, 2.5, 3, and he is totally like not in the room. He doesn't see us there. He's not talking. He's gone from being a calm, happy, eye contact to literally not being with us.
Did you try? What happened when you tried
you
to
hit
hold
the
him?
wall, you said.
When you try to hold him or calm him down or comfort him.
He would not be comforted. He would wriggle out of my arms. Sometimes the tantrums would be so severe, self-injurious behaviors. I put makeup on my arms, the scratches, bite marks, okay? So when I talk about hitting that wall, I remember one day a friend had told me that her son had had problems with language delay, and she said when he had tantrums because of the inability to communicate, she would spray him with a water bottle in the face. Well, I was desperate. Okay, that sounds horrible, but I was desperate. One day Wyatt has a tantrum, and I ran to get the water bottle, and I sprayed him in the face. Well, he just went ballistic. He ran for the door. I grabbed his clothes. I pulled him over. As I pulled him, he knocked something off the shelf. It shattered. I got down on my knees. I had blood cuts on me. He started biting me, scratching me. I'm pulling him. He's screaming, wailing like an animal. I'm thinking the neighbors are going to think I'm abusing my child. After 20 minutes, he calms down. I'm rocking him in my arms.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, where is this dream of this perfect baby boy gone? And why can't I get an answer? And I swore that day that if I did get an answer, I would help other families. And very soon after that, I got the answer. The answer was autism.
And it took such a long time. When that answer came, were you relieved to know what was causing this?
I was relieved, but I still didn't know the severity of it. He was misdiagnosed as being higher functioning than he was. Finally, at 4, he was diagnosed. Then, when he was almost 5, I found out about the blue standard of treatment, the gold standard, which is called ABA therapy, applied behavioral analysis. Now, he was almost 5. Why hadn't I heard this? He'd been in speech therapy, he was at a special school, but this literally retrains the brain. It accentuates the positive behavior, eliminates the negative, and the woman who started ACT Today, Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh, is the preeminent expert in the world. When I met her at a seminar, I called my husband, I said, I met somebody who's gonna help our son, and we started pursuing this therapy. He's had it now intensively for 7 years. He's had an aide at school. He's doing very well now, I'm happy to say.
How old is he now?
He is 12. He's not recovered.
Yeah.
Now, you can recover children. We don't call it cured, but recovered, where they no longer test as having autism. But you have to get in at around the age of 2, 40 hours a week. Now, if you were to pay out of pocket for that, it's about $200,000 a year. Insurance covers it partially in some states. You can see this breaks a family. I mean, we've used our life savings.
To do, but you and you and your husband you stayed. A lot of times you see the family splinter.
We stay together. We figure we've been through this much together and other things. We're on this journey together.
What do you want people who are out there who may be experiencing something or don't know and that are lost?
Okay.
What should they do?
First of all, you're the own best advocate for your child.
Look at that smile on your
Don't let anybody tell you if you think something's wrong. It's your gut instinct. A mother's gut is never wrong, is it, Christina?
Never. It never.
So don't let anybody tell you, oh, there's nothing wrong here when you feel there is. Keep trying to get the answers. Once you get the answers, if it's autism, get out of denial. It doesn't serve you well. You got a lot of work to do. Move on. Get support. Get information. Go to the University of Google, find out what's going on, and don't give up. A mother's love has created more miracles in this world than any other single factor in my belief.
Just by sharing your story alone, to explain what happened to you and your mother and your brother, I mean, those were things that influenced you, but it's great that you're out there speaking about it to help other people.
Thank you, and we give families grants at ACT Today, so you can go to our website. Yeah, that's what we do.
I will invite you to do so. Go to acttoday.org and check out Nancy's tips there, especially her tips for moms on our Facebook page. They'll be sitting there waiting. What a brave!
Yes.
I mean, I know it's the only road you could have traveled, but you did it, and
thank you.
You've taken on quite a journey, both to you and your husband. All right, well, we're coming back. We're going to change up gears a little bit. I'm going to have to be brave because I'm going into the garage by myself.
Sending you in there alone.
I'm going to show you guys how to Restoration 101 for some furniture that you feel may be lost or gone forever. We're going to breathe life back into it.
Welcome back. You're so eloquent. You're just so eloquent, and you're able to say things and say them so succinctly. I need to say less. I'm going to take a class from you.
Anytime.
You're amazing.
We read last week a letter from someone who wrote to me on our website and was angry with me for saying that my mother had a hard life with a child with Down syndrome. And I certainly didn't mean to infer. She said that she had an aunt with Down syndrome and that these are God's children. And I did respond to her, and I read it last week, that if anybody believes they're God's children, it's me. I do run a ministry at my church called the Exceptional Families Ministry, and it is for that purpose alone, to show us the blessings of any special need child. And I believe my brother was a blessing. I believe my mother was a great woman, but trust me, her life was hard. And when your pediatrician, when you have your baby and they take one look at it and say, put it in an institution, that's hard.
It is.
And she grew up in a time of denial, and she was a brave lady. But anyway, we got a lot of positive feedback, great information on autism.
And I have to say, I got some insight on Monday that I can't wait. I spoke to Eustacia Cutler on Monday, and she's going to be with us next Tuesday, and you guys can be writing in your questions. And she's agreed to come several times. We're going to be talking to her via phone on Tuesday, but she's agreed to be on the show multiple times, so we'll get tons of questions in. But it was amazing to talk to her, and I don't want to give things away for the interview, but one of the things that I did say to her was
for people that don't know who Eustacia Cutler
is. It's Temple Grandin's mother. Okay, you know, I mean, one of my heroes.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
And I was saying that to her on the phone on Monday, and you know, we talked about a couple of different things, and I wanted some insight for her about how difficult it is that we find that a lot of times the community is at odds, and, and some of our adults who are on the spectrum don't like the way we talk about autism. It offends them and it hurts their feelings, and she had some really amazing insight.
I can't wait to hear that.
Yeah, and so I encourage you guys to tune in on Tuesday. I love it when you can talk to somebody and they just shift your perspective and you go, oh, look, I'm looking at it from over here. Never saw it that way before. This is a whole new world. And that's really, she's a wordsmith. She is a wordsmith. She says things and you go, and I was so upset with myself that I wasn't tape recording the conversation. I cannot wait for you guys to have a chance to hear her and talk to her on Tuesday. Amazing woman. That's next Tuesday. But in any case, we have a great guest that's here waiting. We were really late getting her in the door.
Yes,
She's been waiting patiently. Brianna Shaffer is with us from Play Your Part. This is musical therapy and lessons, and we're really excited for her to talk with us about the difference that this kind of thing can make in our...
Specifically for children on the autism spectrum. And she's using what she calls the universal language of music as a tool to help open doorways for our kids.
It's really very amazing. So stick with us. We'll be right back with Brianna Shaffer.
This is the second annual ACT Run for autism and military families. We're down here in San Diego. It's absolutely gorgeous morning. All right, let's just start moving. Let's move those feet. I know it's a little chilly. Some of you are just arriving. Hey, you guys are looking at it. I want to remind you, you are running to raise money for an amazing cause. Our military families with a child of autism. You guys are heroes. Thank you.
So are you ready to run? Go!
Someone who's had a lot of friends who've had children with autism, and I'll tell you, there is nothing more heartfelt than watching the support that this organization provides for families and for militaries and for children.
Whoa! Look at this little silver bullet on the side. He's gonna win it. Oh my gosh! Tackle him! Way to throw down a killer personal best, of course, on your Act Today 10K. Look at that! That is a serious commitment to no limits racing.
You know, a lot of times you hear things about autism, you're hearing about people trying to find a cure, but what happens to the people who are living with it daily with their children? And Act Today supports them with grants and funding for a helmet, for example. They say in the lifetime of a child with autism, you can probably expect to spend about $3 million. So Act Today helps out with those things.
1 in 88 military families have autism.
That's entirely too much. We have an autism epidemic. It's almost impossible for families to get the care and treatment they need, particularly the military family, who moves on average every 2 years. Oftentimes they have a parent deployed. Their children do not get the care and treatment they deserve.
I hope all of you guys enjoyed running today. We're extremely humbled to get to be the title sponsor of this great event, and it's going to grow every year. We started off as a small company with a big vision, and a few years later now we've donated over $750,000 thanks to generous support and generous marketing from our charitable partners.
All right, here now we go. On 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
This is international. Beat mega radio smasher. Had the time of my life, and I've never felt this way before. Yes, I swear this is true, and I owe it all to you. Oh, I had the time of my life, and I never felt this way before. And I swear this is true, and I owe it all to you. Dirty bit. Dirty bit. Hey, hey, hey. Hey, clap your hands, everybody. Come on, clap your hands. I came up in here to rock, light a fire, make it hot. I don't wanna take no pictures, I just wanna make it hot. I was going to get wild. That's my side.
The fact that you have the band going, you have friends here, you have just a great atmosphere. Why not come out? And you're in Southern California. You can't get better.
I want you to know you made a difference today in the lives of families with children with autism. You guys are amazing. You're activists. You guys rock. Bye, everybody. See you next year.
This event would not be possible if we hadn't had the tremendous support of sponsors.
We encourage everybody, join us next year. The party's going to be bigger and better than ever.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. Nancy and I are here with CAN on our forehead. Just a reminder that that stands for Coverage for Autism Now. And we're encouraging everybody to participate with us on April 23rd and write it on their forehead or on their hand.
On your wrist. You know, I've got a tattoo there, Warrior, because I'm Wyatt's Warrior. But you could put it there. You could put it, you know, on your hand. Yeah, you can put it on your arm. You
Absolutely.
Can put it
we're standing
wherever
in
you'd
solidarity
like
with those families that don't yet have coverage.
And send us pictures
yes, we want
of
those
you
on
with
our
the
Facebook.
can so we can put them on our Facebook page that day.
And we want legislators to see how many people are participating. So that's April 23rd. But right now, here in the studio with us, we have a lovely young woman, and it's Brianna Shaffer. She is from Play Your Part. That is, they do music therapy and lessons. And Brianna, do not be deceived by how young and pretty she is. She is a board-certified music therapist and has a neurological music specialty. So thrilled to have her here with us talking about this. And let's start with Play Your Part. Where does that name come from?
Well, as I was graduating high school, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do for a career path, and I was given this beautiful necklace that said, "Life's a symphony, play your part." And that became my high school senior quote. And eventually I knew I was going to open my own private music therapy practice, and I knew at that moment that it would be called Play Your Part, because I'm doing what I can in the community, playing my part, as we all are playing our parts, right?
Yes, but that's such an inspirational story. When you write your book one day, you can call it Play Your Part.
So let's talk a little bit about what it is that you guys actually do. Can you explain to us what music therapy is?
Of course. Music therapy is the use of music to facilitate non-musical goals. So we're using clinical and evidence-based approaches and using music to facilitate those goals. And it's done by a board-certified music therapist. Not anybody can just use music. We can all play music, but using it as therapy, we are board-certified. And so a lot of things that we can work on are cognitive skills, socialization goals, fine and gross motor skills, communication goals.
Yeah.
And you in particular, I'm sorry, Nancy,
No, go ahead.
I want to talk
Now,
about autism.
Yeah, so tell us how that crosses over into autism and how, for example, you might work with a young person on the autism spectrum. And I understand we understand that there's a range, but maybe take an example of one of your kids who you've worked with.
Sure. So music is very engaging and motivational. So working at the child's level where they are, meeting them where they are, and playing, I'm on the floor playing guitar and different instruments with them. It's very engaging, and using music a lot with children with autism is for socialization, getting those communication skills going, because music is processed in both hemispheres of the brain. So it can work in facilitating those cognitive skills with those kids.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you work with a range of ages as well?
I do. My youngest client right now is 22 months.
Okay.
And my oldest client is 37.
Oh, interesting.
So, yeah.
And do you find that the skills can be brought out no matter what the age, that there can always be some success here?
Definitely. If music is motivational for the child, we can get and pull a lot out of them. Not all clients are great for music therapy, and so we need to make sure that our therapy is beneficial for them. And the typical client loves music, and we can use music as the reinforcer for them.
Right.
So we're working on those goals, but they're having fun. They're not even really sure that they're learning skills, but they are, because it's so engaging and fun for the client.
And I heard a beautiful story the other day from an autism parent, actually a woman who I want to get on the show, who has written a book about her son with a dual diagnosis of Down syndrome and autism. And they didn't really know that their child had this affinity for jazz until they took him when he was like 13 to a jazz concert. And the child started moving to the music and going up to the stage with the musicians. And jazz is now his thing, right? So sometimes we can discover these things, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I have a lot of parents come into my studio wanting their child to learn the piano or the guitar, for instance. But we have to see and assess where that child is. If they're 4 and a half, they want to learn piano. That's young, just in general.
Yeah, we tried Wyatt when he was really young.
So they have to have that attention span and fine motor movement. But telling and educating the parents what we can do with music to facilitate some of those other non-musical goals while incorporating music and getting that love of music going.
Right.
With that internal beat and the ear training through music is really awesome. So.
Let me ask you about nonverbal, because I imagine you've worked with some nonverbal individuals on the spectrum.
Yes.
And do you ever find that the music has opened doorways to becoming verbal?
Definitely. And I do a lot of work with speech therapists, actually. I do a bunch of co-treats. And one kiddo I started seeing a couple years ago, actually, I recommended we do a co-treat with speech, because he was seeing speech therapy on the side, separately. And I said, well, we really need to work on his oral motor movements and those kinds of things, which I don't have the specialty for. But using music, he's really motivated by music. Mom says he's humming all the time. He's not talking yet, but he's humming, babbling, those kinds of things.
Yes, we do.
And so
we do.
Us paired together, 2 specialists together, we were getting him talking much faster than separate.
So, Brianna, where do people need to go if they want to find out more information about Play Your Part?
So you can go to www.playyourpartmusic.com. And to learn more about music therapy in general, you can go to musictherapy.org.
So there are people around the country that can do this. Besides, they don't have to all move to Orange County to get.
Definitely
okay.
not. Luckily.
Good. Yeah. Because I'm like, where can I get this? This is fantastic.
Absolutely. And so if they go to that other site, are there listings of the board-certified music therapists?
Yes. So you can search based on zip code for a board-certified music therapist in your zip code.
Okay,
Well,
great. This is a great service.
Remarkable. And just tell us a little bit about the range of services that you provide at Play Your Part.
I provide one-on-one music therapy. I also provide group music therapy sessions, and those are targeting mainly social skills goals, with kids who have issues socializing. I also offer adapted music lessons, so that would be for the type of learner who might need a little bit extra support, and a typical music teacher might not benefit from.
Exactly.
And then I do consults and contract work within the community.
Really remarkable. And what is the process that somebody needs to go through if they're hearing this and they're into music? What do you need to do to become a board-certified music therapist?
You need to get your either bachelor's in music therapy or a master's equivalency, and then complete a 6-month internship, and then pass a board exam.
Wonderful.
So,
well, I really applaud you for, paying attention to that necklace and working to make the world a better place for those on the autism spectrum.
In other words, for playing your part.
Yes.
Thank you. And thank you for playing yours.
Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you.
Again, playyourpartmusic.com, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right, we are going to take a short break, and we're going to be back with more of Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy after these messages.
When you find out you're having a boy, you always think like, oh, he's going to play football, he's going to do this and that. And then when he's diagnosed, all those things get washed away.
It's like that piece that's always in the back of your mind, where is he? What is he doing? Is he safe?
We really didn't know what we were dealing with. I wish that they could have directed me a little bit more and provided me some information.
I was a young mom. I didn't know what it was like to raise a boy, despite a boy with autism.
Hundreds of thousands of families are not getting the help they need for their children with autism all around the country. ACT Today is determined to bridge the gap. These families really have to go through a lot to get a grant. The application process isn't easy. The records, the diagnosis proof, they're really battling for their kids. So when we can give them a grant, it is so wonderful to see that they succeed in getting that help for their children. Our founder, Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh, is an amazing woman, and she is one of the world's foremost authority on behavior of children with autism. She's extremely knowledgeable, and she oversees every single grant we give. She is part of that process. People may think of autism care and treatment as simply schooling or therapy, but we provide important safety supports, things like fencing, for example. The whole family's living in fear of that child running out into traffic. I recently delivered an iPad to a little boy with some of the apps that are out there for children with autism. Miracles happen.
I got the iPad from ACT.
From ACT,
What did it say? Can you repeat that, Dustin?
I got the iPad from ACT.
We have helped so many military families, and when I think of these brave families that are fighting two battles, one to protect our country and one for the right treatment and care for their children, it breaks my heart, and I think we have to do more as a nation to help them.
There's not a day that doesn't go by that we don't think about it. Some people say, oh, he's normal. You don't see the battles that I see every single day. My husband does have to deploy, and when they get on that bus, that might be the last time that my kids ever see them.
So I called, and they informed me that he had received the grant, which was like a blessing from above. I was just like speechless. I just started to cry because, without it, we would have been lost.
The ACT grant was a total miracle. Without that, we wouldn't be able to receive the service dog. So we're so appreciative what they've done for us as a family.
Recently, ACT Today funded a program for military children with autism in San Diego, the Inclusion Films program, which is run by Joey Travolta, and teaches kids on the autism spectrum literal filmmaking skills. They learn how to make a movie.
Are we ready? There you go, got it. Okay. Everything that goes into the process of making a film goes into everyday life. So they're learning life skills, they're learning to collaborate.
It was really nice to know how much they were enjoying this camp.
and they're with people who are supporting them and are making them feel great about themselves and their differences and their similarities. And I get 2 kids that are working together and apart and together and apart, so it's an interrelationship as well as a camp and a learning experience.
It's so fulfilling when I get letters. One stands out for me, a boy who was 14 with Asperger's, and we gave him a grant to go to a drama camp. He wrote to us and said, "Dear Act Today, thank you for letting me belong for the first time in my life." These kids are remarkable. You know, we underestimate them. They're so knowledgeable, they're so capable, and we can change the life of a family, which means changing the life of a community. Welcome back to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy, and we're wearing CAN, or CAN, on our foreheads, and that stands for Coverage for Autism Now. We are standing this month for Coverage for Autism Now for everyone across the United States for recommended treatment and therapy for ABA therapy, and we want it to be covered by insurance, by Medicare, by Medi-Cal, by all the states around the country, because this is a necessity. This is not, you know, we need to look at this, the insurers need to look at this as important as giving a cancer treatment to a child with cancer. So
Absolutely.
That's what we're standing for.
So we stand together, united. We can do this. We've got a bunch of In the News. You know, normally we do In the News at the top of the show, but we pushed it to the back, so we got to get through some of this stuff.
So you could watch me cry on national television.
Well, hey, and that was amazing. I sat here
I didn't
and
plan
wept.
to, but Christina Ferrari grabbed my hand, and she's so compassionate.
Yeah.
You know, she cooks, and she's got like 6 kids, and she's just like, she's so nice.
She taught me how to roast a chicken. She's a good woman.
I like her.
I do too. Okay, so for our In the News, the NIH is going to have a virtual forum on, wait for it, autism and the environment.
Yeah.
So
this one really intrigued me.
Yes, it's a virtual forum, which means that we can all participate on the autism spectrum disorders and the environment on Tuesday, April 22nd. It's the day before we do the CAN campaign.
Okay.
From 2 to 2 p.m. That doesn't make sense. This is what they've sent us, from 2 to 2 p.m. Eastern.
No, it must be 12.
So from 12 to 2 p.m.
You can
Eastern.
check the...
We'll check it.
Yeah.
But it says it's open to the public, and it'll feature a panel of autism research experts who will take questions.
On autism and the environment. This is a very controversial area, I might add.
But registration is required. The questions for the panelists can be submitted beforehand as well as during the webcast via the website or the NIEHS Twitter account. Use the hashtag AutismForum2014.
Right.
So again, that's NIEHS, and use the hashtag AutismForum2014. I can't wait.
You can Google NIEHS if you can't find anything on this. National Institute of Environmental Health Services. I am very, very interested to see what they're going to say about various toxins. And I did write in some things asking their opinion on the whole vaccine controversy, because that would be in that environmental.
Absolutely.
And I want to know what these, you know, really, obviously they've done so much research, and they should be up to the minute and non-biased. So it'll be interesting to hear what they have to say.
Very interesting to see. I have questions and concerns about school environment, and you know, a lot of our kids are in those temporary trailer things that are formaldehyde buses, basically.
And I have questions about genetically modified food. I've got questions.
We have questions. So it's good that they're having a forum. Okay, want to talk a little bit about unemployment?
Yes.
Okay, so we show a rise in the unemployment for the disabled in the month of March. It's a slight uptick. I know, shocking. A slight uptick it went from 14.3 to 14.5. Although the Department of Labor is saying that that's happening because there's more people with disabilities looking for jobs than ever before.
Of course, which, given the rise in autism, there's more people with autism looking for jobs than ever before.
Right.
So the main thing, I think, the takeaway on this one is, if you're a captain of industry, if you own a company, if you own a business, hire individuals on the spectrum. And with other so-called disabilities, you might find that they have abilities rather than disabilities.
And as we reported last week, if you're going for a government contract, you better because
do it.
you have to have a percentage of individuals with disabilities,
it's
or
going
you're
to be
not
a
going to get the
requirement.
contract.
And yay on that.
Yeah, yay on that.
Bill passing.
Okay, we talked a little bit about autism coverage in different states.
Now what's going on in Kansas, Shannon?
In Kansas,
besides Dorothy.
yeah, we're not in Kansas anymore.
Wizard of Oz.
But we could be in Kansas. Hopefully, all we're waiting for now is a Republican governor, Sam Brownback, to sign, because the legislature there, the Kansas State Legislature, has passed a bill that will change autism insurance in the state of Kansas. Now, there have been a lot of people yelling about this because the bill did not get passed as they hoped for it to pass. So it's not a perfect bill. But enough people are saying, look, we'll take it because we need to get on the board.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to acknowledge that it's not what they had hoped it would be. It has taken them 6 years, though, Nancy, that they've been struggling to get a bill.
And it's a better than nothing bill. Well, everything is better than nothing.
Yeah.
I would. They are. Oh, and I love the fact, I'm going to give a thumbs up to State Rep John Rubin. He's a Republican, and he negotiated the bill with the insurance industry, which agreed not to fight the measure. So he must be a pretty stand-up guy.
Yeah, the thing, where the controversy is originally they wanted it to cover coverage up to age 18.
Right.
This bill covers up to age 12.
Okay.
But it's a step in the right direction.
Okay, great. So Sam Brownback, Governor Sam.
Sign that bill.
Sign it.
Sign that bill.
All right.
All right.
All right. Here's a controversial one, Shannon.
Here we
and you
go.
and I talked about this because I forwarded it to you. You got it as well.
And I think I ticked you off. Did
Well,
I tick you off a
didn't
little
tick
bit?
me off. No, I just thought it was interesting that we had immediately different reactions on this.
Yes.
It's the name of the blog was Why I Got Electroconvulsive Therapy for My Autistic Son, which, what did they used to call it?
I don't know.
ECT, in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, they called it what? Come on, I'm having a over middle-aged brain lapse, but shock therapy, electroshock therapy.
Yes.
Hello.
Okay, that's the one.
Lobotomies.
Yeah.
Well, that was a
lobotomies,
surgery.
Yeah, that's the surgery.
Yeah, that's where they take part of the brain out, but. Electroshock
They called it
therapy.
shock therapy. That's
and
exactly
you used
what
to
they
see
called
like
it.
in the movies they used to portray it as a person getting shot. Yeah. Well, okay. So actually, this mom, who is named Amy S.F. Lutz, and I'd like to get her on this show, she says for some children with autism, ECT is the best tool available. When I tell people about the electroconvulsive therapy my autistic 15-year-old son Jonah has been getting for the past 4 years, the response has been surprise, certainly, curiosity, interest. No harm, no judgment. But that's to be expected from those close to my family. They know we spent the better part of a decade struggling to manage Jonah's aggressive and self-injurious behaviors. Countless therapies, behavior plans, medication trials, and even an almost year-long hospitalization at one of the nation's premier facilities failed to stop his frequent, intense, and unpredictable rages. And, her friends originally thought that this was sort of like the brutal depiction in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
And of course, that was my initial reaction when Nancy called me and she said, and I saw just the title, I hadn't read it, and of course, my butt cheek slammed shut.
This disturbs me.
I was like, what? Are we back to shock therapy? Are we shocking children? I immediately got very tense.
Right, and I said, read it and see what she says. The boy who broke a teacher's nose when he was in kindergarten, who left us, his aides, and his teachers bruised, bitten, and scratched. This is not a mom that has not given everything to her son in terms of what's available. That boy is now tubing with his brothers and sisters, riding a tandem bike, and studying Hebrew. He used to only be able to go out with his father. He can now. He just did dolphin therapy. And so she has a book, Each Day I Like It Better, Autism, ECT, and the Treatment of Our Most Impaired Children, and I think being published.
I think that's really the upshot of this. She goes on to detail a couple of different cases of individuals that were severe self-injurious behavior. The families we're at a point where one of the boys that she talks about, he was hurting himself to the point where they had to put splints on his arms.
Yes.
So that he could not reach his face. And
yeah, well, I've
and the
seen that
turnaround.
with a lot of the older adults on the autism spectrum. I visited a facility the other day that is a beautiful facility for adults who have no one, and they're in group homes. And I will have to tell you that a lot of the adults there with autism had helmets and they had splints on their arms. So,
and I think that, you know, what I got from it was that for parents that are in that place of saying, I've tried everything else and nothing is working, that this is something that they can begin to look into. But my cautionary statement is, and she says it right there, for the most impaired. I think there are a whole lot of interventions that work for a whole lot of kids that are not, because even she details that there are some negative aspects to it. They're a lot less negative than some of the medication that they put kids on.
More than 200 kids have died from complications from taking antipsychotic drugs, which are commonly prescribed for some of our children with severe autism. But not one child has died from ECT since its first use in the pediatric population in the 1940s.
Absolutely. So, you know, it's something in those really extreme cases to definitely look at, and it really opened my eyes to the possibilities when you're looking at that that kind of situation.
I agree. And I think the main thing is we have to continue to look for all ways to help families that have children with self-injurious behaviors that are on the severe end of the spectrum, because a lot of these families are just not getting the treatment and care they need.
Absolutely, and there's a desperation there. And thank you for bringing it to my attention and making me overcome my preconceived notion, which she addresses here, and we encourage you to read her whole blog.
Yeah, and we're going to try and get her on the show.
There we go. So we're at an end, but we've got a lot of exciting things coming up. Next week, we have a mom who's going to be on the show with us, that her son, you probably have seen the YouTube video of him, a little boy who has autism but is also blind and is one of the most amazing singers.
Interesting that we have Brianna and play your part for music, because this child apparently had such a symbiotic relationship with music, and he now sings.
Oh,
and he's
such
blind
an
and autistic.
Such an inspiration. So she's going to be with us next week. I'll also remind you that tomorrow we've got Dr. Adele Nadowski and Dr. Jonathan Tarbox on the show tomorrow, and then next Tuesday is amazing. For the second hour, we're having Eustacia Cutler via the phone.
Temple Grandin's mother.
That's right. That's right. For those of you, because I forget that people don't know that.
Yes.
Anyway, we're essentially out of time here. I want to say, give your kiddos a hug from me.
And give yourselves a hug from me.
Bye-bye
Bye.
for now. We will see you tomorrow. And don't forget, CAN coming up on the 23rd of April.
Coverage for Autism Now. Send us your pics.
There we go. Bye-bye for now.